It's my pleasure to introduce Sharan Kalwani, president of the Southeastern Michigan Computer Organization, as well as the Linux SIG leader. He will be giving us an introduction to Audacity and Avidemux, two editing programs. Sharan is an industry technology specialist with 25 plus years of experience. He has degrees in both engineering and computer science and has worked in many diverse areas. Today, his tutorial is designed to introduce new users to the basic features of Audacity and introduce beginners to Avidemux to cut, join, split, rotate videos, as well as add some filters. I will now turn things over to Sharan.
So we have two topics here, and both are getting sort of compressed in this little 50-minute session. Just want to set expectations that, we won't be able to cover everything, but I think I can give you enough flavor about it so that you'll be intrigued, and I encourage you to try it on your own. It's, I also learned the same way by, stumbling around, playing with things, discovering things. Even if there's a manual, it doesn't tell you everything. You discover more by exploring than by any other method. Okay, so let me start off with Avidemux, the first utility out here. As maybe John might have already mentioned, if not, I'm sure he'll throw it in several times during the day and maybe in previous conferences. He's a big proponent of free and open source, which is what FOSS is. And Avidemux is one of the earliest free and open source for video editing. It was written quite a while back, almost 1999, 2000. So that makes it what, 30 years ago, when free and open source wasn't even, a major thing. But clearly there were a lot of visionaries out there at that time, and regular video editing tools probably cost thousands of dollars, when really what the persons wanted to do was, you have a video clip and we just want to snip it, oh, I need this portion and this portion, and that's it. And one of the other things that, in fact, it's gotten a lot more complicated is too many video formats. They've evolved over the years and they continue to evolve. Nowadays, the latest video formats are 4K, 8K, and with all this promise of 5G and ultra high def, more formats are arriving on the scene. But the original intent was just to do, little video edits, snipping the clip and converting the format. You might recall that in those days, there were still lots of format. There was the Microsoft format and then everybody else. And so you needed to be able to do conversions. People wrote libraries, and the people who put together Avidemux, they adopted those libraries as well. So like it says here, it's a very simple tool. You can teach yourself in 5-10 minutes, just the basic stuff that you want to do. And it should be rather intuitive. I've played around with a number of other video editing tools. Yes, they're sophisticated, but it requires you to rearrange your brain and your way of thinking and approach to match that of the original designer of that program, what was their philosophy and approach, which makes learning a little bit, hard. So I like this because it says, oh, I want start here, end here, clip that out and convert and save it. And that's about it, just the way, you'd normally expect. The important thing is that it was written in C++, and that allows it to be actually recompiled for other platforms, operating systems. It's actually been ported to many other choices that are out there of hardware, some which are now extinct as well, but it still lives on. And then one of the things it used early on was a free MPEG conversion library that folks in the open source community wrote, put together, and they still maintain it. So I incorporated that. So as this library got updated, then automatically Avidemux also inherited all those features. Now, it doesn't have really an official logo, but this is the de facto logo that you can see. You can see the little inserts in a regular chemical film clip through which the sprocket holes are attached, and then the sound clapper bar. And then, of course, you can tell that it's open source because of this little Linux penguin that's out there. So that's a quick, super high-level introduction to Avidemux. And as I mentioned, it's actually primarily developed on Linux. So it'll work on any distro of Linux out there, Debian or SUSE or Red Hat or Slackware, even on distributions that don't follow any of those patterns or distros out there, independent ones, it works quite well. And of course, for the Mac OS, there is only one platform, and the Windows 7, Windows 10, because it's written in C++ and the libraries are independent, you can get the Windows version from the same place, both 32-bit and 64-bit. There's a difference between the two. 32-bit was the original concept written, which was because back in 1999, the machines weren't that powerful. The microprocessors were limited to a 32-bit address space, so you could only get or edit 2 gigabyte size video files. Of course, now it's practically de facto 64-bit, so you can have huge video files. It's able to index and use them quite easily, and then put together many clips and render them. Now, because it's written in C++ and the MPEG library are both open source, it's just a matter of recompiling it for some minor tweaks so that you can have it on these other operating systems. There's a lot of folks who still use FreeBSD, NetBSD, and OpenBSD, and they would like the same tools. So whether it's Linux or a Unix-like operating system, it's available for all of these and a few more as well. In case you have one of those obscure platforms, as long as it has a C++ compiler, you can run Avidemux out there. Okay, where would you actually find it if you wanted to download it? Well, just go to avidemux.org. And at this time, although this might change in the future, it has built-in libraries and software so that if you need to use it in any of these other languages, you can record it in your preferences, turn that on, and then all your help, manuals, online help, prompts, everything will be in these other languages. And the latest release is version 2.7.8. And 2.7 is the major release. The 0.8 out here, they've added small little bug fixes and a little bit of optimization. But it doesn't need any of those fancy GPU hardware or things like that, because it reads in frame by frame in a serial fashion, and then it outputs whatever choices you've made, again, in a serial fashion. So, and that any CPU core will do. And of course, if you have multi-core, laptops or desktops, It'll still use one core out there, and then the other cores will be free for you to do other tasks, check email, fire up another utility, and it'll work just fine. Now, here's the most important part. Remember I said that there are a lot of different video formats out there. Well, it doesn't support all of them out there. They are easily over several hundred, maybe 200 to 300 formats out there, each one with a tweak. But these are the most popular ones that it has and it supports. Now, one thing you might have to keep in mind that these are really container formats. What a container format is that it'll actually include information about what is the compression that's used, what is the encoding that's used, and there could be different encodings. It could be MPEG, okay? It's a container format, but it'll actually have maybe different kind of compression turned on so that it would still work. So that's all put in a container format and then rendered in the video so that people can exchange it. It's quite often the case that many other utilities will not have the full container format. They'll state that, oh yes, we support MPEG, but in MPEG you have easily a few different types of compression that is going on. They might support only one kind of compression. So it'll say can't read MPEG file, and then people go back and forth and say, well, I have an MPEG, but why can't it read it? So Avidemux supports all of the standards for MPEG 1 as well as MPEG 2, which is called DVD video. And then, of course, it supports AVI, audio video interleave, Flash video as well. This is, again, going out of date. And then there's another container format called Metroska video, which is actually quite popular because it saves on space. The reason you have these different container formats, many of these formats, they allow for example, subtitle tracks. You could have multiple subtitle tracks, like in the DVD video. It can support different languages, different subtitle, also in different languages. That's why we have container formats, so that it could employ different compression for the audio, different for the video, and then for each one of the languages as well. So these are by far the most popular. And what I mean by input and output format, that means it can, if it's sent a MKV file, it can input that. And if you so choose, you can say, all right, I can take an MKV format or classical old MPEG or the modern day MP4, which is MPEG version 4, but I'd like to output that in AVI format. And that there might be a reason, or a Flash video format, because you might have an MP4 file, but you want to place it on maybe a web page, and certain browsers can't deal with a MP4, but they can deal with Flash video. And that is quite often the case. Many folks have desktops for which they cannot update the browser. Maybe it's a corporate desktop and they limit things. So then you can easily take in these formats and output maybe even the same video without doing any editing in a whole bunch of different formats. Again, there was another very popular one. You could ingest in AVI format, which is a little bit big. It didn't do compression as well. And then output that in MP4 format, which is a lot more compressed, and that's supported by many smartphones. Some smartphones don't handle AVI. So it can be in the reverse also, that you have a newer device, but it doesn't support older formats, but only the newer formats. So this comes in very handy, and is actually one of the common things I use Avidemux for, to convert from one format to another for a variety of reasons. For example, on maybe some Facebook or WhatsApp group, you try to upload a video in MPEG and it says, oh, I can't deal with that, but I can deal with AVI. So you say, all right, I'll just convert it. It was a recent birthday party, and then we have a family WhatsApp group, so then I can upload it out there. So all of these things are possible. Or if you have a DVD, maybe from 5-10 years ago of a wedding video or something, and now you want to share it in a Facebook group, you can then take in the DVD video and convert it to MP4 and upload that. By the way, it might be 10 times smaller and you won't lose any of the resolution. Having said that, these are all the popular formats that it can both do input and output at the same time. And the other thing is it can take in even some of other formats, like Windows Media Video or Windows Media Audio. You still see these around. They've been kind of replaced by MP4 or MKV or AVI, the audio formats or video formats, but it will not output in these formats at all. If you need to output, you'll have to choose from one of these out here. So this is again useful if you have older stuff that is in these formats. You can slurp them into Avidemux and then spit them out in one of these more popular formats. Same thing with QuickTime, which you all probably know is a very popular Apple format. Now, Apple still supports it, but they also have added MP4, container format. So you can take old .mov files and then do your editing with them. But then when you need to save it, you'll have to choose from MP4 or one of the modern day formats. So let's go to, okay, a common question that I get asked is, where can I find documentation? Well, to tell you the truth, I've not really had to refer to this. They have a wiki page of their own, the same place where you can download the 32-bit Windows, Mac, Linux versions. They have a wiki page, and they have lots of simple guides out there. How to download itself, how to get started, and stuff like that. So you can refer to that, and perhaps that might be useful for boundary cases where it's not terribly clear as to how can you go about doing something. So you can find that. In fact, inside this documentation itself, they mentioned lots of folks who have posted YouTube videos on how to do many things inside Avidemux, and some of them are dated because they were from version 1, version 1.5, 2.7. Now there's a lot of 2.7.8 YouTube videos out there. So where did my mouse pointer go? Here we go. Okay, so at this point, oh yes, before I forget, I have to also share that while Avidemux is wildly popular and pretty easy to use, you may don't be surprised if 3 months or 6 months later you start wondering about how can we do more fancy features. For example, special effects, going from one scene to another, or maybe inserting some static content. You know how you've seen in those documentaries, they'll have some text appear in a blank screen, and then they go on to the next video out there. So things like that, yeah, and special effects, well, those will come with sophisticated video editors. And I will mention that there are several of other free and open source video editors that do not only what Avidemux does, cutting and pasting and conversions, but they can also do lots of other transitions and special effects. Here's a very small list: Cinelera, Kden Live, OpenShot, Shotcut. Often people get confused between these two simply because of the similar sounding name. PITIVI, that's how I like to pronounce it. Flowblade is another. And then this last one, Blender Video Studio Edit. This is extremely sophisticated. And with all of these, there's different graphical user interfaces. So you got to learn different things and different approaches. And of course, these provide also many more formats than Avidemux does. And Blender is actually a lot more sophisticated, and it takes quite a bit of time to learn and master it. So if people say, oh, why don't you use Blender? Well, you have to really decide what you really need to do in your audio video editing. Blender can actually create artificial scenes for you. So if you're in the movie making business and you want to create your own movie, your own characters, their geometry, their shape, and things like what you saw in the movie Avatar, that you can do with Blender. And of course, it's quite compute intensive. So if you have a GPU, then that would be helpful. But it is, you have all the range from simple editing to all the way to completely composing a brand new scene with your own CGI and stuff like that. So at this point, let us try something very simple. Let me stop. Well, let's see if I can do this. Okay, and I had Avidemux already fired up. Let me fire it up again. Let me know if you can see it.
No, we see the main screen. It's not sharing.
Okay, let me stop share again. Okay. All right, now it should show you something that looks like, I can't really do much about the font or stuff, but hopefully you can read it. But you might see a big dark screen out there, and then on the left, File, Recent, Edit, View, Video, Audio, and stuff like that. And then if I click out here, this is normally the splash screen you should see, Avidemux 7278 release. And you'll notice something out here. It'll say multi-platform video editor, which it is. And then here it'll say copyright 2001 to 2021 by Mean. Mean is actually the nickname of one of the 3 chief developers of Avidemux out there. So that's the pop-up splash that'll occur. So let's do a little small video editing. So let me, I had a file open there. So what you see out here is it'll tell you about the video decoder. That means what are the formats that are in use, and video output, the output, what format it'll be in. And if I click on this, you see all these different choices. There's Flash, and then MPEG-2, MPEG-4, and then a much more advanced YV12 and many other formats out there. But we'll just right now do nothing. When we open a file for editing, it will read the contents of it and figure out, oh, this is the container format, and it'll maintain the same format. And that is done by choosing the copy out here. So if it is copy for both video output and audio output, it'll maintain the same format. And then out here, you can choose a difference out here that, all right, I might have input it in AVI, but I'd like to output in MP4. If you don't say anything, it'll default to MKV Muxer because that provides the smallest amount of storage, and then many subtitle tracks and other features can be added to it later. But you can click on configure out here, and then you can change the basic settings like the aspect ratio, or click on advanced settings and then do a lot of things with color and stuff like that. But again, this is just about the only advanced feature you need to employ. But beyond that, I'm just happy with, just taking the input, converting it, or keeping it in the same format to do video trimming. Let's see. One other thing I'll mention about Avidemux, that if you click on tools, you'll notice it says scripting shell. This is very, very useful if you suddenly find yourself doing a ton of video work, and maybe many of them are the same things. You have like 100 video clips that all need to be converted from one format to another. You can write a little script that's in the documentation. When you download this, the documentation comes with it. And then, of course, there's the online wiki. And then you can write a few simple lines which would say, all right, this file converted from AVI to MP4, this file convert. You can put that all in a script, or if you want to do starting point and ending point, you can also put that in a script and invoke it in the scripting shell, and then just specify the directory and it'll convert everything out there. Let's do a little test out here. So I'll say click on open, and it'll come up here. And here's a bunch of files that I've been playing around with. I gave this talk maybe about 3 years ago at Semco. And at that time, there was a movie called Elysium. And so I downloaded the original trailer, which they gave away freely. Clicked on that, and let me just, you can see it's about 79 megabytes in size. And that's the name. And I say click open, and then it'll tell me it's reading it. And it's not terribly big, and that's the size of the original format. But I put this in full screen mode, so let me make it a little bit smaller out here. Now, usually in any audio video editing, you would like to know where to start and where to end. So here is the important part at the bottom. You have a timer running that's in hours, minutes, seconds, and sub-seconds, and then frame by frame. So it might be 25 frames a second. So it counts the number of frames as well, so you can do very precise editing. Typically, then you'd use many of these buttons at the bottom out here. So it's already read the file, and then this is an icon for opening the file. This is an icon for saving the video, which you can still do with this toolbar at the top. But the one thing I wanted to share with you was this one with the little I out there, the information. So it read this movie trailer file, which is about 80 megabytes. And when I click on I out here, it tells me the property. It says it's using H.264, which is a standard for MPEG encoding and decoding. And in fact, that's the one that Netflix and many online video streamers use. It's also used by your cable company and folks that stream movies over your cell phone or tablet. It's the H.264 format. It tells me the image size is 1280 pixels by 720. That's the aspect ratio. And the frame rate is just under 25 frames per second. The total duration of the clip is about 3 minutes and 19 seconds. And .253 is the last frame number. And then there's a lot of other information about the audio. It's in stereo at about 15,000 bits per second. The frequency sampling. Now, all of these are of interest for those who do a lot of video editing. So I click, you can copy this on the clipboard. It's important because when you want to do conversions, you want to know what was the original, and people often have a logbook where they keep notes. Click OK, and then the next thing out here is at the bottom, the play or stop, and then go back one frame at a time, go ahead another frame at a time, go to the previous keyframe. What a keyframe is, starting frame, and then the differences to that frame. So like a group of frames out there. And then the two most important buttons, which were borrowed from the old video editing, A marker and B marker. That's the start of the marker and end marker. You can mark that and then say, clip that for me, and ignore the rest, stuff like that. And then there's a whole bunch of other buttons as well. Searching it, go to the very first frame, go back by 1 minute. So sort of built-in tools up there. And here it'll tell you that the A marker is at 00, the B marker is at the full duration, 3 minutes, 19 seconds. So that's this beginning and ending out here. If you got a flavor of just some of the things that Avidemux can do, it can also do a lot of other things. Save it, check for the frame rate, change the aspect ratio from 720 to maybe some other, maybe a more rectangle square format. So you can do all sorts of conversions and format changes. And if you choose a different output format, you can increase the size or decrease the size. There's a dummy muxer out here that doesn't do the actual conversion, but it uses it to calculate how much time it'll take. So you'll see a reference to that at the end. So all of these things are some of the simple, easy to use features of Avidemux. Okay, so now let me stop sharing that, and let me go back to the original display that I had out there and share that. Okay, step 2, share. Okay, I trust you can see the screen where it said demo.
That's correct.
Okay, and now here is the part of the humor that I was telling you about. Remember, there was a dummy muxer. So this is very common amongst a lot of video editors. Everyone has different computers and huge amounts of videos. So once they've selected the video editing portion, then it has to be converted. The conversion part is called rendering. And that sometimes can take hours, okay? And so all these guys are off and, make a coffee, have lunch. And even when they come back, it might still be rendering. So whenever you see on TV, people showing short clips of something, behind that is a video editor who spent a lot of time and effort or gotten better hardware or software, so the rendering goes faster. But if they're stuck with older stuff, then sometimes that clip will only appear the next day on your newscast. So I hope you appreciate the humor in this. Number one video editor excuse for slacking off. Okay, moving on. Oh, by the way, if you want to know more, you can find these at these YouTube videos, and I'll share this screen slide with you. Now, in the next 8 to 10 minutes, we'll talk about Audacity with you. Let me just move this here. Okay, Audacity. Now, a lot of people ask me, what does Audacity mean? I've lost count of how many times I've answered it. I said it has to do with audio editing, and the word Audacity was there, but it's kind of cute. And look at all the references to Audacity. So if you Google, you might get all of these, but our job is to just talk about the audio editor in today's session. So like Avidemux, which does mainly video editing, and it can change the format of the audio. but it doesn't do audio editing. This one is dedicated towards audio editing, and I'll tell you what does that entail. In the short time that we have, it's a lot of stuff. And like Avidemux, it's available on all versions of Linux, Mac OS, Windows, as well as all of those other operating systems, FreeBSD, OpenBSD, and it's been around for a long time by these two students who wrote it and then released it on the net because they just wanted to do lots of audio editing with different audio clips out there. And, they never expected it to sort of become the de facto audio editing tool of, the hobbyist world and open source. To date, there have been more than 110 million downloads of folks who use this to do audio editing. Of course, there are commercial programs as well, which probably can do a lot more fancy features. For example, sample the voice and substitute the voice so it looks like the original speaker, sort of like a fake voice, so it's hard to tell, but they cost money. This one doesn't do that, but it does everything that people practically want. And why is it available on many platforms? For the same reason Avidemux is available. It's written in languages that are available on many platforms. The current release is 3.0, and when you download it, you'll actually get a nice manual for it. There's only one book, as far as I know, out in the market, and that's, of course, now out of date. I saw that maybe 4 years ago, when Semco used to meet at another place. Someone brought the book out there. And the beauty is, because it's so popular, people have contributed to this utility, that they have menu options in over 30 different languages. And so now this is where it's available from, audacityteam.org, and they also have the current update of the manual there as well. The actual software is probably like, I don't know, maybe between 18 and 20 megabytes. So what does Audacity do? A lot. It can record audio from various different sources, your microphone, from your input jack, or if you have a special card, it can sample the sound from there. It knows practically many of the drivers for many of the different sound cards out there, and then it'll play it back for you so that you can do all sorts of editing. It does have one feature that I like, a timer record. Now, this was in the old days where we would maybe go out and we wanted to capture a sound. We'd set things up and a couple of microphones and then say start recording from midnight till 6 a.m. in the morning, turn it on and leave, and it'll do that. And then, of course, the standard job, editing. It does your standard cutting, copying a track, pasting the track somewhere else. Now, it does have a lot of sophisticated navigation controls, because the people who wrote it, they knew what they were doing. They were sound technicians, so they added a lot of navigation controls. I don't know if I'll have time to show you all of that, but we'll take a brief look at the user interface. It does some simple special effects processing and amplitude editing. Now, this is, let me just say what amplitude editing. So every sound has a waveform. The louder, then the higher the wave. And the height of that wave when you're recording it is called amplitude. So you can actually stick to just that part of it. Don't apply any special effects to maybe the background noise or ambient noise, which is also part of it. You can also use this to select a portion of the sound and dampen it or minimize its effect by changing its amplitude or the height. And then you can also change the speed. So if someone's speaking at a certain speed, you can actually speed it up and put that track back in there so that suddenly, they're speaking like one of the Alvin and the Chipmunks. And of course, conversions, just like video has so many formats, we have quite a few audio formats that are out there. So it can do all of those conversions. So let me give you a super brief demo at this point. And I won't cover all of the features. So let me stop share, go to my screen. Okay. I hope you can see welcome to Audacity, version 2.4.2. And I like this because I often will click on go to the forum here to see what's being discussed or the wiki out here. But you get this, and if you don't like it, you can turn it off. So as you can see, very sophisticated, almost looks like a professional technician's sound panel. So out here, you can open a audio file that you have or save audio files you're working on, edit it, clip boundaries, make selections out here. And in Zoom is very important because if you have a long audio file, it'll then show it in one particular screen, and then you can use Zoom to then pay attention and find that exact part that you're interested in. So in the interest of time, I'll do a little quick editing, but your standard play, stop, go back one frame, go ahead another frame, and can record a new track already in your existing project, maybe from different sounds or even your microphone. So this way you can do voiceover if you like. And then here's the special effects, all sorts of stuff. Remember in the 70s, the wah-wah pedal, it has that distortion, adjust bass, treble, analyze, the clipping, and a whole bunch of other tools, sampling and stuff. So let me choose something. Let's open an audio file, an existing audio file. And so I often listen to the BBC, and I saved a little clip here recently. Where did that go? Here it is, News Hour from the 5th of January. And I think this was a news clip I saved when the runoff elections in Georgia were taking place. So I click on open, and it's importing it, tells me the progress. It's a big file. Okay, about 15 seconds. And then as you can see, it's done an analysis of the wave, sound. It's in a 2-channel stereo. That's what this is. Can convert it to mono. And it's about, you see this marker here? This will be about 48 minutes long. So let's click on play and see what happens. I would invite you to pay attention to the bottom, which is what we call the start and end of selection. If I click on it, it's got hours, minutes, seconds, and milliseconds that it can track. I don't need that much, so we'll do hour, minutes, and seconds. Hours, minutes, and seconds. So click on play. Do you hear the audio? No, I guess not yet. Okay, let me stop that. And I did share sound.
Yeah, it's the output on that. I think what we need to do, Sharan, is reschedule you for Audacity because we're past time.
Yeah, so all right. Let me just wrap up in 30 seconds out here and leave time for any questions. But you can use this here to select, a portion of sound. And when you do that, then you can use, you see this scissors out here, you can use that to clip that part or copy that part, put it on another track. And that way you can play with all sorts of little snippets of sound and assemble them together. And then here there might be a very high waveform, you can dampen it. And all of these tools are possible right up here, you can see, and all these special effects, change the speed. So there we go about Audacity. You can do all this stuff. Now, I don't know why the sound wasn't playing, but it might be a special feature that we might have to go back and enable. So let me exit this and no, don't save the project, exit, and then at this point, stop share.